Welcome to the Southeastern Conference. Two 11-win teams in a division that eats itself. Georgia and Auburn both finish 11-1. They each lose exactly one game. Georgia is on the road in Week 10 to a team almost nobody ranks. Auburn is in Athens in Week 12 to Georgia. So the two best teams in this conference play twice, and the second one is for everything. Why am I doing this one last? Four teams here finish with 9 wins or better. Two finish 11-1. One of them goes into Death Valley in Week 3 and beats Clemson. And one of them loses at home to a team that finishes 500. The SEC is the deepest conference in the SNCFL and also the most self-destructive. 9 of these 14 teams beat somebody they had no business beating. 6 of them lose to somebody they should have handled. Both halves of the sentence are in this episode. So let's start in the East with Georgia. The best secondary in the country, 3 free safeties and 3 strong safeties who could all start anywhere in this league, 7 corners deep and nothing gets behind them, 10 receivers with no drop-off, 6 quarterbacks on the roster, and the top 2 would both start for most of the division. Quarterback Paul Renfro is the reason the record looks like this. A real arm, elite decisions, and the most accurate passer in the game. He does not miss. Free safety Mark McIntosh is the best defensive back in the conference, and sophomore receivers Cooks and Jaramello are already stars with 2 years left. What's new this season is the resume. They open with Kentucky, go to Florida, and then in Week 3 they win at Clemson against Matt, the most valuable single result any SEC team records all year, and the reason an 11-1 Georgia is a top 3 seed instead of an argument. The one loss is Week 10 at Louisiana Monroe, which is not an upset. They close by hosting Auburn in Week 12, and they win it. Coming in at number 2 is Tony and his South Carolina Gamecocks. The record outruns the roster, and that needs saying plainly. The secondary's legit, a genuine shutdown corner, and a back end that holds up. But the center spot is a liability every snap, and this offense never gets ahead of a schedule. 8 wins happens in 2 ways. They steal 3 non-conference games as underdogs, including road trips to Arizona State and Troy in weeks 2 and 3, and they win the close division games, Mississippi State in the opener, Tennessee in Week 7, Vanderbilt in Week 10, and the one that decides second place at Missouri in Week 11. 3 teams finish 5 and 3 in this division, and South Carolina takes the runner-up spot because they beat both of the others head-to-head. Up next is Missouri. The best road team in the East, which is a strange sentence and an accurate one. 5 of their 8 wins come away from Columbia. Quarterback Anton Vaughn is the smartest passer in the conference. He sees the coverage before the snap and diagnoses it correctly every time, and his ball placement is why this is an 8-win team instead of a 10-win team. He will read it right and put it 2 feet behind the receiver. Their season is made in 3 buildings: a win at Illinois in the opener, a Week 8 win at Florida that ends Florida's season, and a Week 10 win at Tennessee. Add LSU at home in Week 2 and Georgia Tech to close. The 4 losses are Alabama at home, Clemson at home, at Georgia, and the head-to-head against South Carolina. Up next, let's talk about Kentucky. The biggest jump in the conference, and it turns on one afternoon. This is the weakest roster of any winning team in the division. The center room gets driven backwards on contact, which is why a quarterback with a genuinely big arm throws off his back foot all year. Receiver Carlton Spencer is a real number 1, and the secondary is better than the record suggests. 5 league wins is the story. Tennessee at home in Week 2, a road win at Vanderbilt, Texas A&M in Week 4, and at Mississippi in Week 11. And in Week 5 at home, they beat Florida. That's the fifth largest upset in the SNCFL this season, and by itself it moves Kentucky from the bottom of the division to third. Up next is Florida. The most disappointing team in the league, and the schedule isn't why. They have a genuinely good defense, 13 linebackers, all of them playable, with Blunt the best of them all. In a corner room 6 deep with 3 real starters. Quarterback Terry O is a threat with his legs, which is the right profile behind an interior line that doesn't hold up. And they do the hard part. In week 9, they beat Louisiana Monroe at home, a top 10 roster, the eventual West runner up. And it's the best home win anyone in the division records. Then they lose 6 games, 4 of them as the better teams at Kansas State in the opener, at Kentucky in week 5, at home to Missouri in week 8, and at Old Dominion to close. That's not a schedule problem. That's 4 Saturdays where the offense couldn't survive its own line play. Let's take a look at Tennessee next. Old Rocky Top is going to struggle this season. 2 conference wins, which means 3 of their 5 come outside of the league. That's the honest shape of this team. The offense isn't the problem. Freshman quarterback Andre Conway is accurate and reads it correctly right now, throwing to freshman receiver Marcus Jackson, who catches everything in his radius. By 2070, those two are the best young pairing in the East. The secondary is why they are 5 and 7. Corners and safeties who get beaten every week in a division where 4 teams can throw it. They beat at UNLV, win at Boston College, and then at Buffalo, take Vanderbilt in week 6, and close with Texas A&M. Everything else is the same loss on repeat. A good drive, a stop they can't make, and a 2-score fourth quarter. Bringing up the rear is Vanderbilt. The collapse of the season and the roster will not explain it. The Ontario defensive line is 7 deep with 2 freshmen who already start. By talent, this is a 5-win team. They go winless in the SEC anyway, and 4 of those 8 losses are 1-score games they were favored or nearly even in. Kentucky at home in week 2, Missouri at home in week 4, Tennessee at home in week 6, and at South Carolina in week 10. Win 2 of those, and the whole East reshuffles. The only win all year is the Miami of Ohio in week 5. Let's move out to the West and talk about Auburn. The deepest roster in the conference and the best team in the SEC. They are the defending national champions. By talent alone, there's no one better. 5 running backs and 3 of them are stars. 5 tight ends, all of them are mismatches. 10 linebackers, 7 edge rushers, 6 corners. Every rotation deep, every rotation good. Safety Robert Comer is one of the best defensive players in the country. Quarterback Ishmael Counts is a sophomore with the arm, the accuracy, and the decisions. By profile, he's the second best quarterback in the conference behind Renfro, and possibly the best in the country within 2 years. The schedule is not soft. They open at SMU. In week 2, they host Maryland, the best roster in the SNCFL, and win it, which is the single most impressive result any team in this league produces all season. Then LSU on the road, Alabama at home in week 5, East Carolina, Florida in week 10, all handled. The one loss is in week 12 in Athens, and it's a coin flip in a hostile building. Up next is Louisiana Monroe. The most undercovered good team in the country, and the real program where reputation and roster agree. Both are top 10. Tight end Charles Chapman is the best in the league at his position. 2 sophomore edge rushers in Shepard and Bill are both already dominant. 4 corners who could start anywhere, 7 receivers with no drop-off, and a steady single quarterback in James Bonds, who is accurate and doesn't beat himself. 2 results define them, and they're both wins over teams ranked above them. A week 4 win at Alabama and a week 10 win over Georgia. that hands the East champion its only loss. That is a real playoff resume. The two losses are Week 11 at Auburn, where they're outmanned, and Week 9 at Florida, the strangest result in the conference, and the difference between hosting a playoff game and traveling for one. Let's talk about Alabama. 9 wins in each of the 3 losses says something different. 11 receivers deep with 2 freshmen who already start, a safety group, 13 bodies across the 2 spots with no weak link, and quarterback Kenneth Travis, who has the arm to hit every throw on a route tree. A comfortably top 30 roster that plays like one for 11 weeks. Loss 1 is Week 4 at home to Louisiana Monroe. No shame. It's a better team. Loss 2 is Week 6 at Auburn, and it isn't close. Loss 3 is the one that cost them the season. Week 12 at home against Coastal Carolina. A 9-win Sunbelt team walks into Tuscaloosa in the final week and wins, and that result alone moves Alabama off the last playoff line and Coastal Carolina into it. Let's talk about the Bayou Bengals now, LSU. The most talent-rich 500 team in the league. Left tackle Sandlin is the most complete tackle in the conference, dominant in the run game, unbeatable in protection, blocking for a quarterback who cannot throw the ball past 20 yards. The safety play is excellent. On paper, this is a 9-win team. They finish even because they lose 3 games away from home that a 9-win team wins. At North Carolina in Week 1, at Missouri in Week 2, at Pittsburgh in Week 8. None of those is a good team. Add the 3 they were already losing to, Auburn, at Alabama, and Louisiana Monroe in the finale, and that's the season. Sandlin will be a first-round pick on a 500 team, which happens here more often than people like to admit. It's time to head to the state of Mississippi. Ole Miss is going to have a down year. An accurate quarterback and an interior defensive line that gets moved off the ball every down. That combination produces exactly this, a team that scores just enough to be in games and cannot get anybody off the field. The 3 wins are South Alabama in Week 5, South Carolina at home in Week 8, the best thing that they do all year long, and the Egg Bowl to close. They opened by losing at home to Texas A&M, which is the worst loss anybody in the conference takes. Now let's talk about the other team in Mississippi. The steepest drop in the West is Mississippi State. Their 2 league wins come early, Tennessee at home in Week 3 and at Texas A&M in Week 4, and then they lose 8 straight, including 3 non-conference games they're favored to win. In Kent State at home, Utah at home, and at Ohio. Losing to a MAC team in Starkville in October is how a bowl season becomes a 3-9 record instead. And now finally, Texas A&M. The offensive line loses at every position, which means nothing else on the roster gets to matter. They aren't favored in a single game all season. They win 1 anyway, Week 1 in Oxford, and then they lose 11 in a row. The title game. Auburn over Georgia, narrowly, in a rematch. Georgia gets them in Athens in Week 12 and wins it. 3 weeks later, they meet on a neutral field, and everything that made Georgia the favorite in the first game is gone. Auburn's roster is deeper. The running back and tight end rooms in particular are a class above anything Georgia puts out there. And with the home field off the table, personnel is all that's left. 2 11-1 teams splitting a season series with the trophy in the second game. It's the best championship matchup in the league and the one most likely to produce a December rematch. Playoff-wise, 3 locks in a fight. Auburn at 11-1 with a home win over Maryland is a top 2 seed in the country. Georgia at 11-1 with a road win at Clemson is right behind them. Louisiana Monroe at 10-2 has beaten Georgia and won at Alabama, which is a better resume than most of the teams they'll be seeded against. Alabama at 9-3 is 4th and sits on the wrong side of the last line. Losing to Louisiana Monroe and Auburn is fine. Losing at home to Coastal Carolina in the final week is exactly the result a committee uses to separate two 9-win teams. They need help. Nobody else is close. South Carolina and Missouri are 8-4 in good stories, but probably not playoff teams. The thing that decides it, Week 9 in Gainesville. Louisiana Monroe goes to Florida as a heavy favorite and loses. That one result does three things at once. It costs Monroe a top 4 seed, it hands Florida the only quality win on a 500 sheet, and it keeps the West race alive 2 weeks longer than it should be. If Monroe wins that game, they finish 11-1. They're seated above Alabama and possibly above Georgia, and the entire top of the bracket looks different. That's the most consequential hour of football in the SEC this season, and it happens in a game nobody will preview. That's the series, 10 conferences, 128 teams, every game on the board. Season has already opened at the time of this video, but drop your national title pick in the comments. Let me know where you think I'm wrong. Does Florida actually have a much better season? Is Missouri and South Carolina just being given extra cred because of their two coaches? Does Tennessee make a run? All these are questions that we'll get to answer relatively soon. As always, thank you for your support for the channel. Have a great night.